Thank you, Richard.
My pleasure.
I really, really like those new lyrics.
Absolutely.
So it is time for Lisa Lazaro, who is our practitioner of the day, to do our opening prayer. Richard, could you mute your computer, please, sweetie? To do our opening prayer, and I'll share her quote when we're ready. Take it away, Lisa.
Okay. So why don't we take a couple of deep breaths, breathing in that holiday spirit and the spirit of light and love and compassion. I know that there is only one divine source known by many names. It is light and love and peace and joy and compassion. This source is individualized in each one of us, making us much more powerful than we even can know, and uniting us all eternally. Today, as we gather to celebrate the light, like our ancestors who celebrated the solstice, let us bring the light into the darkness in all the parts of our life, and to all the people who we love and care about, and even those that we may have disagreements or dislikes with. And so, as we welcome in the light, I want to say that I'm so grateful for this community and the opportunity that we have to be together, and for Reverend Michelle for constantly bringing us into deeper levels of spiritual knowledge and awareness, and bringing us ever closer to one another and to that divine source that is incarnate in each one of us. And so I release my word into the law, knowing it is done, and we release together by saying, and so it is. The quote, I've had two quotes today. The first is from Roy Bennett from a book, The Light of the Heart. Learn to light a candle in the darkest moments of someone's life. Be the light that helps others see. It is what gives life its deepest significance. And the other, there are two ways of spreading light: to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it. And that's from Edith Wharton. And so maybe we can take a few moments to contemplate how perhaps we spread the light, or can spread the light, or can be the mirror. Thank you, and so it is. Forgot about that. Here's December's affirmation. The light of life is full within me and around me. It shines forth into the perfect day, lighting my path to peace, love, and joy. The light within me radiates to all and through all. I am one with the infinite light of divine truth. I am so blessed, and so it is.
That was beautiful, Lisa. Thank you so much. I love, love, love the quotes, both of them. And so fitting for what we're going to be talking about this morning. So Richard has some Christmas music for us.
I do. Can you hear me? Yeah, this is a beautiful little Christmas song with a message that we all have something to contribute. From the least of us to the greatest of us. It's called Little Drummer Boy. Come, they told me, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom. A newborn king to see, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom. Our finest gifts to bring, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom. To lay before the king, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom, ra-ba-ba-boom, ra-ba-ba-boom. So to honor him, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom, when we come, little baby, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom. I am a poor boy too, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom. I have no gift to bring, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom. That's fit to give our king, ba-ra-ba-ba-boom, ra-ba-ba-bum, ra-ba-ba-bum. Shall I play for you, ba-ra-ba-ba-bum, on my drum? Mary nodded, ba-ra-ba-ba-bum. The ox and lamb kept time, ba-ra-ba-ba-bum. I played my drum for him, ba-ra-ba-ba-bum. I played my best for him, ba-ra-ba-ba-bum, ra-ba-ba-bum, ra-ba-ba-bum. Thank you, little drummer boy.
Woohoo! Thank you, Richard.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much. That was lovely. If you could remember to mute yourself afterwards, that'd be great. And anybody else. Thank you. Well, here we are. Almost time for Christmas. And I'm so glad we get to spend time together this morning. Welcome to One Heart, One Mind, Center for Spiritual Living's online Sunday service. And as you know, we're continuing to celebrate this season of light and love together. And within Centers for Spiritual Living, you might often hear people bless each other with love and light. Sometimes when I write letters or emails, I'll sign my closing in love and light as an inspirational way to close. And in this season of love and light, it seems like a good idea to explore what we mean when we talk about the light. And as you know, in December, which is the darkest time of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the brightest time in the Southern Hemisphere. So we celebrate light in all of its iterations, either in its absence or in its fullness. And this morning's message is entitled Cultivating Light. Oh, and just as a little heads up, at the end of my talk, I would love to hear from you about how you personally cultivate light in your own life. So keep that in mind. So what do we mean when we say we cultivate light, or that we want to cultivate light in our life? Let's take a look at what light represents or symbolizes in our culture, especially in our religious cultures. You know, light is one of the most universally understood symbols. You know, all throughout human history, we've seen all kinds of interpretations of the nature of the divine through the symbolism of light. You know, we've all seen paintings with rays of divine light cutting through the clouds or halos around the heads of spiritual masters. You know, we've all read poetry and literature, heard music lyrics describe the divine through the description of light. We equate light with the source of goodness and with ultimate reality, God. We even use light to describe learning or intuitively acquiring knowledge. We might say, and suddenly the light came on. Or we've seen images of a light bulb above someone's head, representing that moment when you had this clear understanding of someone, that light bulb moment we might talk about. We say, oh, now I see the light. Light is a symbol of the mystery and the majesty of divine source spreading throughout all of its creation. I love that. In another way to understand light is to look at it through the lens of science, which in my opinion is just as awe-inspiring and illuminating as the symbolism of light. Light is the smallest quantity of energy that can be transported. That's so cool. It travels in the form of electromagnetic waves, and it's described as wave-like packets of energy, or photons, they're called. Photons are these elementary particles, meaning that they can't be split or divided. How cool is that? Just like the divine can't be split or divided. Light has something called a wave-particle duality, and quantum physicists have discovered that photons appear as waves until they're observed by a consciousness, you or me or the divine, well, we are the divine, and then they collapse into particles. So they go from waves of possibility into matter, into experience. You know, and not all light is visible either. Light has an enormous range of wavelengths and frequencies. Some are visible to the human eye and some are not. No wonder it's such a perfect symbol for the spiritual or the divine realm, which is, as we know, not seen with the human eye, but with the human heart and with our own intuition, our own intuitive knowing. You know, when I was in ministerial school, quite a few years ago. In one of my classes, I was required to read a book. It was kind of thick. I pulled it out as I was preparing my talk and realized how thick it was. And I mean, thick information to move through, not necessarily thick. And although it was a pretty big book. Anyway, the name of the book was called The Reflexive Universe. And it was written by a man named Arthur Young, who I just discovered passed away in 1995. And he was a mathematician, and he was also a pioneer in the field of consciousness studies. And in this book, he wrote a chapter called Light as First Cause, or Light as Creation, or the Creator, which suggests that it's light that is causal to everything in creation, that light creates. And that idea has always stuck with me. I've always thought about that idea as light being causal. And it's brought meaning for me to the symbolism as light as the divine. You know, it reminds me of that passage in Genesis. I don't want to get it wrong. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. Or the words that are attributed to Jesus in the book of John, where he said, "I am the light of the world." You know, which brings home for me the idea of light as creating and connecting everything throughout all of creation, throughout all the manifest universe, or as we say in Science of Mind, the body of God, the body of creation. So I wanted to share a little short passage from Jung's chapter on light as first cause, which it's, like I said, his work is a little thick, but I'm sure you'll understand. Bright group here. All right, let's see if I can share my screen here. Hang on. I want to share the passage. Let me get back into my Zoom page. Here we go. So here's a Jung's passage in the chapter that's called Light as First Cause. Oh, and I wanted to say, just as an explanation, that he talks about Max Planck in here. And Max Planck was you probably know who Max Planck was. He was a German physicist. And let's see, I wrote down what he did. He was a German physicist who won the Nobel Prize in 1918 for the discovery of energy quanta. And a quanta is a unit or a packet of energy, like a photon. We use that word is quantum physics is about quantas of energy. Anyway, I'm tripping over my words. Here's what he had to say. He wrote, "We have given some account of Planck's discovery of the quantum of action or photon as the ultimate unit of light, and have indicated the connection of action and purpose." And I love this. I love that he connects action with purpose. So the act of creation itself is purposeful. It's not just happenstance. There is a purpose and a meaning behind creation. And here's the line that I love the most. "We conclude that life is the unitary purposeful principle which engenders or gives life to the universe, and that it has the nature of first cause." So light itself, he's saying, is purposeful and has the nature of the divine or the creator itself. Isn't that a great thing? I love that. So I'm going to stop my share now. So I just love the idea that we can pull together both the science of the spiritual principles that Science of Mind teaches and the ancient wisdom in which they're rooted. And these two approaches bring together a deeper clarity and a fullness to my experience of the meaning of spiritual principles, in this case, light. And the significance that it has in our daily lives, because the science is one way of interpreting these spiritual principles that we teach, and then the ancient wisdom brings the deep mystery and mystical element into it, and it's so beautiful. So let's talk now about how we can cultivate light in our daily lives. One way we can cultivate light in our lives is to daily find and connect with the light within us, which I know we all do through our spiritual practices. And bringing up that light helps us see it in others. And I bet if you think about it, you can think of someone who you know, either a famous person or someone in your life that is so filled with light that it just exudes from them, that it spills out all around them. You know, people that always seem to be upbeat and positive and even joyous. You know, and it does not necessarily mean that they're always happy, because life throws us some curveballs sometimes, no matter who we are. No one is exempt from that. But these are people, I'm talking about people who seem to respond to those curveballs with grace and perspective. We might say that they respond to the world from a place of love and light, from their higher self. And it's these type of people like Gandhi and Mother Teresa and Maya Angelou and spiritual, maybe Wayne Dyer in more contemporary terms, who seem to face the challenges of life. And there are a lot of unspoken people who do the same thing, but they seem to face the challenges of life with love and forgiveness. You know, and we see them as beacons of light, and that inspires the world. I think it inspires everyone. You know, but the truth is that these people who seem to just exude that kind of life, who seem to be so extraordinary, are really just ordinary people, just like you and me, who've learned to respond to life from a deeper knowing of who they are. They're people who rely on that inner light to guide the way, which really reminds me of the story from this season of the story of the Magi, following the star in the sky to guide them to the Christ consciousness, exemplified as symbolized in the baby Jesus. You know, I've always loved that image of this guiding star leading the wise men on their journey to Bethlehem. You know, it's a wonderful metaphor for us as we walk through our lives. You know, regardless of where we are on our journey to Bethlehem, the light of the star within us can guide us when we connect with that and let it guide and drive our lives. You know, and just like those people who seem to be lighter and happier, as we recognize the light that's within us and that intuitive wisdom that's always available to us, we begin to relate to everything in our world from our connection to our own bright light, to our own inner star, if you will, to our source. And this recognition allows us to interact with the world from a more thoughtful and intuitive and loving standpoint. You know, and another thing that we can do to help us cultivate our light, once we've developed a habit of connecting with our own inner light, is to spread it out to others. Like many of you, my experience has been that once I've experienced the light of the divine within me, even momentarily, in a flash of insight, in meditation, that never goes away, that it always stays with me. And then I want to express it through my thoughts and my actions in the world. It just sort of wants to ooze out from all around us. And that's one of the things that I love this time of year, especially during this COVID experience that we're all walking through together, is that even when we can't really be out there in the world doing things, we have found ways to create that ripple effect, to give by stretching our love light out to others through connecting on the phone and on Zoom like this and on Facebook, by letting people know that we love them and that they mean so much to us and how important they are in my lives. I know that for me, as a large family, you know, I'm one of 7 kids, before COVID, we really didn't connect and tell each other how much we loved each other and how much we cared about each other. And now that we're in the middle of this experience together, we find ways to reach out more regularly and to really let each other know how we feel about each other. And that creates that ripple effect. And we do it with our words of love, just as much as we do it when we're walking around in the world and showing people with our actions or giving gifts. So there are ways that we can still connect with each other and shine our light wherever we go, or we can be creative in the ways that we do that together. And another way to cultivate our life is by simply having fun. You know, when that dawned on me, I went, oh yeah, sometimes just having a good time raises that light up inside of me, doing things in our own life that magnify our life through joy. Joy often gets overlooked in our kind of fast-paced, work-oriented culture, but it's one of the most important catalysts for really bringing the light of love into our lives. And if you're like me, you often find yourself rushing around, getting caught up in the busyness of life, and you forget to take time out just to simply enjoy yourself. I remember when I first met my husband, he asked me what I wanted out of life, and I said, I want to learn how to play more. I still haven't mastered that, but it's still a desire that I have to learn how to play more. So how about if we cultivate our life by taking a fun break during the day? You know, just to relax, even if we have to schedule it in to make time to, I don't know, do anything that brings us joy. Read a good book, watch an entertaining movie, take a bubble bath, play games with your friends, walk your dog. I do that every day. It's so much fun. Whatever makes you smile and laugh and feel uplifted, really let yourself have fun the way you did when you were a child. Remember last week I shared that to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to be like a little child, to just feel that free and an uninhibited, unbridled joy. And joy is healing. You know, I remember that saying that was on the sanctuary wall when we used to meet in Sorrento Valley. Remember that? It was joy is an ineffable sign of the presence of God. And it truly is. When we're in joy, we are so lighthearted that the light just kind of oozes out around us and it lights up the world. I'm just talking about it. I can feel the light shine and my joy expand. So another way that we can cultivate our light is to do what we love to do what we are called to do, our true purpose, our soul's calling, if you will. You know, the other night when we were on our Zoom call, I think it was Yvonne was talking about how when we do what we're called to do, things just kind of naturally fall into place. We find ourselves in the flow of that inner light, you know, and when we're living close to our true purpose. And I don't know about you, but I've had many things that I have been called to do in my life. I think I have had many soul's purposes, not just one. But when I follow that light, doing what feeds my soul, it definitely ignites the light within me. There's another saying, you've probably heard this one too. You never work a day in your life when you do what you love. And I've found that to be true. Time just doesn't even seem to matter when you're in the middle of doing something you love to do, whether it's in play or in stretching out into your soul's purpose. You know, you can always tell when someone is living in alignment with their soul's purpose, you know, because they literally glow. Have you ever noticed that? People that are just so standing in the light that they just glow. And as I was thinking about living our soul's purpose, I was reminded of this story. I have this little book that I read from time to time. It's not very big. It's called The Man Who Planted Trees. And it's based on a true story, but it is fictional. But anyway, I wanted to share a little piece of this because it really does remind me of how our purpose doesn't have to be big or grandiose to be impactful or important. I think anything done with great love is impactful, and it creates that ripple effect that I was talking about. And this story from this little book. It takes place on the countryside, in the countryside of France, around in the early 1900s. And it's a story about a young man who is traveling through a part of France that is barren and dry land, and the living there was really tough. And in his travels, he ran across a man who spent his days tending his sheep and planting trees. And the author wrote this description of the man who planted trees, and I'm going to read it. Let's see if I can find it. I know I have it in here. Oh, here it is. Found it. Okay, and he wrote, "This is when I began to wonder about the age of this man. He was obviously over 50, 55, he told me. His name was Elziard Bouffier. He had once had a farm in the lowlands. There he had had his life. He had lost his only son and then his wife. He had withdrawn into the solitude where his pleasure was to live leisurely with his lambs and his dog." I get that. "It was his opinion that the land was dying for want of trees. He added that having no other pressing business of his own, he had resolved to remedy the situation." And then he talks a little bit more, but then later on in that same page, the narrator, who is the young man, said, "I told him that in 30 years, his 10,000 oaks would be magnificent. He answered quite simply that if God granted him life in 30 years, he would have planted so many more trees than these 10,000 trees that it would be like a drop of water in an ocean." Huh. I can just feel the dedication and the joy of the man who planted trees in his words and his determination. I really love that story, and I'm going to read you a little bit more of it in a minute. But I think our list of ways that we would and can cultivate light would be incomplete if we didn't include exactly what Elziard Bouffier was doing. He was being in service to others in his own quiet way. Serving others is a way to bring ourselves into the light and to shine that light so much brighter. Giving and using our gifts for the greater good takes our energy and light beyond ourselves, and it lights up the world. And since we're all connected in the one life of the one light of God, I guess I should say, the light we shine on others comes back to illumine us. Light brings more light. So if we encourage the light that is already within us to expand and to grow, it will eventually burn so brightly that others can't help to see it. And they'll want to follow our example, and our radiant example, to illumine ourselves so that we illumine the world. Not only will we be shining our own light more brightly, but we will also be helping others, giving them permission to shine their own light more brightly. So I want to end today with the last paragraph in this little book, The Man Who Planted Trees. Such a sweet book. Because at the end, in the last paragraph, there's a passage where the younger man, the narrator of the story, comes back after the 8 years he was away, and he hardly recognizes the landscape because it had transformed so much, and it had turned from this barren wasteland land to this land alive with trees and everything. Anyway, I'm going to read the last chapter. I just love this. And he said that it had sprung to life because of the trees that the old man had planted. Well, he wasn't that old. 55 seems pretty young to me right now. Anyway, he writes, "When I reflect that one man, armed with only his own physical and moral resources, was able to cause this land of Canaan to spring from the wasteland, I am convinced that in spite of everything, humanity is admirable. But when I compute the unfailing greatness of spirit and I love this line, the tenacity of benevolence that it must have taken to achieve this result. I am taken with an immense respect for that old and unlearned peasant who was able to complete a work worthy of God. Makes me cry every time I read it. We are doing the work of God. Let your light shine. Let's pray. Taking in a deep centering breath, coming into that inner light, the light of the divine, the one life. It is all that is. It is radiant and effortless. It expanding out in those beautiful waves, and we are observing it and becoming one with it because we always have been and always will be. We are inseparable from the beauty of the divine. So I speak my word for and about each and every person that is on this call and each and every person that is not. I speak my word for our beloved country. I speak my word for our beloved planet Earth and all of the life which walks upon her skin. And I speak my word that there is a shift in consciousness in all life and everything that is connected to the allness of God, which is everything. There is a shift in consciousness that opens us to a new way of being, to a new avenue and flow of the good, that we are so blazing bright and illuminated from this life that we shine our light everywhere. And together we radiate the beauty, the love, the presence, the power, the magnificence of the divine wherever we are and wherever we go and with each other, and that there is a love and a light and a presence that can never be put out, and we are sharing it with the world. So for this new shift in consciousness, this new way of life being life on planet Earth, I simply say thank you. I know that these words are already true. They are already true in the mind of God and are making their way into manifestation on this beloved planet Earth. So for this and so much more, I just say gratitude and thanksgiving. And as I hold that gratitude, I am opened even more widely to the acceptance of this spiritual truth. So it is in this that I relax and know that all is well, and that these words are catching fire with the creative law. So in gratitude and thanksgiving and a deep conviction of the truth, I invite you to say with me, and so it is. Okay. Whew. Let me catch my breath. So this is our time of conscious giving, which we know is another spiritual practice that we contribute our love and our energy to, because we know that as we give, we also receive. And as we give to the things that we believe in, that we know contributes to a world that works for everywhere, for everyone, we are enlarged in that, and we are uplifted in that. So I invite you to, if you are giving a financial gift to the center, or whatever you are giving to the center, either through Tithely or Venmo or through a check in the regular mail, I invite you to imagine that you are holding it over your heart, and I will share the affirmation. Want to get it here? And please say this affirmation with me. I recognize that my gift is an instrument of the energy and love of God. As it flows from me, it uplifts and advances all life, including mine. I give and receive joyously. I am so grateful. And so it is. So I believe that it is Reverend Leslie who is doing our closing prayer, our benediction for today.
And we have a couple of announcements before I do that. The first one is that we will be having our discussion class on Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock on Zoom, and it's going to be led by Reverend Michelle. And the topic is celebrating the Christ within. There will not be any class on Wednesday, as that's Christmas Eve, but the Wednesday night class will be held again the following Wednesday, which is the 30th. And if you want to do some celebration on New Year's Day at 11 o'clock on New Year's Day, we are going to have an event here on Zoom. So we invite you all to bring in the new year with us on New Year's Day. So please join me in consciousness as we know that there is such joy that happens this time of the year. And part of that joy is this center and all who participate in. This is a great light to this universe. And each of us is a light that helps brighten this world that we live in. For we know that this is spirit that is shining through each of us. And we not only enjoy the light that happens in the joy, but the music that is all around us with bells and performers and concerts, knowing that they are great gifts that Spirit has given to us, and we enjoy them tremendously. We know that we are blessed by everyone who has participated in putting this service on this morning. And to this, we say thank you. Thank you, God. And together we say, and so it is. And now we're ready for our closing song.
Silent night, holy night, in each heart there's open light. We are present on this earth, knowing love and giving it birth. This is sacred time. This is sacred time. Beautiful life, wonderful life. It is ours to share tonight. We are blessed to see the truth of the love here on this earth. Rest in peace tonight. Rest in peace tonight. Joyful life, joyful life. We are clear, it is our right to hold the truth of Christ in our sight, to take it into our hearts tonight. Beautiful birth tonight. Beautiful birth tonight. Love and light. bless each other as hearts take flight, ready for the truth to excite each and every heart, each and every heart. Silent night.
Thank you, Richard. I turned off the live streaming to Facebook. I'm going to stop the recording.